X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
I'm Zach. Hi, Adam.
Hey, we got a weird one this week, huh?
Boy, the thing people have not seen behind the curtain of our show, the way that we plan episodes, is sometimes we have really strong central ideas that we're like, oh, we need to cover these things, and we're really excited about it. And then sometimes we're like, I guess we'll do this. And then we throw a story in there that we remember being related to it, but then really isn't. Anyway, that's what we've got this week. Because we're talking about Dani Moonstar, allegedly.
Sure. Yeah. And
allegedly.
That's cool. I like Dani Moonstar.
I like Dani Moonstar as well.
Yeah, Dani's great. And as we will find out during this episode, Dani Moonstar contains multitudes.
Dani has a lot going on to her, which is a lot of fun, I think. She's a good character.
Absolutely.
Remember when they made a really bad movie starring Dani Moonstar, though?
It's so weird, and I still find people defending that, and I'm so confused by that.
We don't need to defend the New Mutants 2016, 2018, 2019,
whenever
2020.
It actually came out. I don't know, but like people are like, oh, they'll bring that cast back and this, that. I'm like, no.
Adam.
They're going to bury that in a hole.
Adam, you need to understand. Earlier today, I argued about X-Men, and I forgot that I'm not arguing about X-Men with anybody anymore. And I got so mad at myself that I deleted Twitter off my phone for a little bit.
That's a really smart thing to do. You got to take that mental health time for yourself.
Here's the thing. I was right. And it's so important that I was right. But equally important is that I don't want to argue about X-Men with anyone but you, buddy.
Hey, that's I like that. I think
I can't be trusted.
I try and make that my approach as well. So I don't know that there's much to argue about this week, but what are we starting with? Because this is an interesting choice in and of itself.
We're starting with a request from Nance, because as you may know, or might not, this could be news to you, but Nance went over to patreon.com/comicsxf, reached deep down into their hearts and pocketbooks, said, folks, I'd like to toss a couple of coins into your coffers and keep Comics XF running. We got great stuff at Comics XF. We're shaking things up. We're doing some new, exciting writing about stuff. So if you want to support all the really cool stuff that's going on over there, patreon.com, $5 gets you an episode of this podcast about whatever you want. Like, I don't know, man. Whatever you want. We're not picky people.
This is a good example of that because the request was what?
Oh, it's New Mutants 37, If I Should Die. Adam, do you know what New Mutants 37 is a tie-in to?
Well, folks, it is yet again a Secret Wars 2 tie-in.
Adam, would it shock you to know that Al Ewing kind of made Secret Wars 2 good recently?
I have to read that because he brought the Beyonder back, right?
Yeah, Al Ewing has now presented the grand unified theory of Beyonders, including this Beyonder, which takes almost every retcon about the Beyonder with his Jerry curl and makes them work, except for the retcon that Bendis did with the Illuminati. Though it's like, also, he's a mutant and an Inhuman, and no one bought that. No one did anything with that one.
Yeah, nor should they. Does it include the Hickman, it was just a baby theory?
It absolutely includes the Hickman, he was just a baby theory.
I love Al Ewing. Just like always coming up with these bonkers things.
Al Ewing shouldn't do most of the things that Al Ewing does, but Al Ewing does them for our benefit. Javier Rodriguez draws the heck out of them.
Yeah.
Neither creative is on this, but one thing that is X-Men related around that. Adam, you know where the Beyonders?
Yes.
You know where they're from?
Beyond.
Yeah, they're from Beyond. Well, do you know what's beyond the Beyond?
Didn't it? I feel like we were talking about this in the Slack the other day. Isn't it like the white page around the panels? Or something
no,
like
it's the white hot room of the Phoenix is beyond the Beyond.
Right, but isn't the implication that is the page of the the paper, or did I just make that up?
Al Ewing's doing a lot of things in this series, folks. It rules. Also, Galactus's hot mom is now Fire and Life Incarnate now and forever. And some of you may say, I don't like that. And here's the thing. You're right to feel that way, because every time that someone else has gotten the Phoenix, it's been bad.
Yeah.
Except for this. This is good, actually, because it's Galactus's hot mom. Anyway, go read Al Ewing's Defenders and Defenders Beyond with Javier Rodriguez. So good. So good. And it brings back the Beyonder, baby.
Yeah, well, bringing back the Beyonder, I felt like we've done these Secret Wars 2 tie-ins a couple of times, so much so that when I read that this was what we were kicking the episode off with, I was like, didn't we do this already? But we haven't. We covered the issues that come after this, after the Secret Wars 2 issue number 9. So this is the
We have also covered the issues that come before it in multiple different arcs.
Yeah. So this is in particular the issue that leads into Secret Wars 2 number 9. And it is the one where the Beyonder basically kills and erases the earth of the New Mutants. So when it's called If I Should Die, it means it quite literally.
Yeah, it's by Chris Claremont with pencils by Mary Wilshire and inks by Bill Sienkiewicz. And boy, Mary Wilshire with Bill Sienkiewicz it's a look.
It's a trip. It is really interesting to see these two. And I love when Sienkiewicz comes back and inks. Just the cover is done by Rick Leonardi, and it has Sienkiewicz inks over it, and it just looks so awesome. Like, Sienkiewicz should do more inking.
Yeah. I do think this is a far cry from some of Mary Wilshire's work, like The Life of Christ Volume 1 or The Life of Christ, The Easter Story.
Haven't seen.
Oh, you haven't read Marvel's The Life of Christ by Louise Simonson, Mary Wilshire, and Colleen Dorin?
That's a real thing? You didn't just make that up?
No.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe when
it was the 90s, baby. Marvel was doing anything.
The Easter Bunny. Next spring, I'll pick a copy up. I don't know.
Yeah, Mary Wilshire, a very clean style, which wild to see Sienkiewicz. Like, Sienkiewicz's inks add so much of an edge to this, but Wilshire's style still really, really works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. Here's the thing about the Beyonder, and sometimes we say things like grand unified theory of the Beyonder, and I think people get the wrong impression, and they think that, hey, is the Beyonder cool and good? And the answer is no, people.
Oh, he's so stupid. He's so stupid. And, from issue to issue, depending on where the Beyonder's emotional state may lie, depending on how he's being written and by who, his motivations don't make a hell of a lot of sense. So we've seen him mess with the New Mutants in a variety of different ways. And here he just seems really kind of nihilistically pissed off for some reason. For the purposes of our episode, and since we're thinking of this as more of a Dani-centric episode, the whole beginning of this issue centers around Dani having visions of how her New Mutants colleagues will die as they are all watching a John Wayne movie. Not a great choice with Dani present.
Well, and the book is doing that very intentionally.
Yes.
One, to get at, hey, this thing that a lot of people would think of as a very normal and fun thing. Well, maybe think about the larger implications of it, which isn't a wild thing necessarily, but I don't know. I guess it's nice to see in a Marvel comic in 1985 to be like, hey, yo, come on.
It's crazy actually to see it in 1985 that you actually have Sam going to Dani and being like, oh man, we did not think about this choice before we put this movie on. Sorry. Now, given the limited access to home VHS recordings, obviously they may have rented this. I don't know, but maybe it's just playing on TV. But for Sam to have that kind of recognition, kudos, and good for Claremont for writing this into the story.
It's why Sam's a good boy, actually.
Yes.
Because he was like, oh, Dani, I'm sorry. I screwed this up.
But Danny is having these like wacky visions of like a demon over Magic's head or an angel over Shan's head and
The Magus
Pluto.
over Warlock's
Yeah, the
head.
Magus over Warlock. So she's having these really cool visions, which are really awesome. They're in hot pink, high contrast inks, and of course, Danny is also wrestling with the fact that these powers come from her being a Valkyrie now.
So it's a great start because one, it says, hey, Danny being native, being Cheyenne is very important to her. And that doesn't go away just because she's this other thing now too.
Right.
And that becomes a very interesting through line for Danny for most of her life. That intersectionality that I am Cheyenne and I am a mutant and I am a Valkyrie and I am a woman. All of this stuff, it becomes kind of her defining characteristic.
Yeah.
In
yeah,
that she's got a lot going on.
Yes.
She has gone past like what John Proudstar would have fallen into of I have one thing going on for me, and that is that I am, a native. And the problem with that is, well, people are more than one thing.
Right. Yeah. He's not a one-note character by any means, or stretching the imagination. And we get this. There is one page here that is absolutely gorgeous, where Danny takes off on Brightwind and ascends through the clouds. It is beautiful just to see Mary illustrate this Pegasus, and Valkyrie, and Danny riding her on the clouds, which is just, it's so cool. And she's having, visions, and there's a little bit of a segue as Roberto is trying to help out a fallen crane in the middle of New York City, which is interesting. So he's separated from the team.
Yeah, there's a whole little subplot about him lifting up a heavy thing. Then She-Hulk comes and lifts the heavy thing way easier. And
Yeah.
he's like, no one knows I did anything. And this one guy was like, I see you, kid.
Yeah.
I see you. I know She-Hulk's cool. You're also cool.
Yeah, you did it good.
But the problem really comes down to the Beyonder showing up. Now, the Beyonder has been more or less tormenting the New Mutants since Secret Wars 2 started. What happens in Secret Wars 2? I'm not really sure. I don't want to read Jim Shooter's Midlife Crisis. I never have wanted to. I don't intend to read Secret Wars 2. You can't make me. I get the gist. He's been screwing with him. He wants to know what love is. He wants to know what life is. He wants you to show him.
Yeah, and I believe you're at the point in the story here where the Beyonder is just kind of like sick of everything and wants it all to go away. So in this particular case, he decides he's just going to bash some skulls. And the whole second half of this issue is devoted to the Beyonder doing just that. And one by one, nobody stands a chance against this guy. He is just like tearing it up.
All of the New Mutants get viciously murdered in this one.
Yeah, you think for a second that Warlock is going to have a chance. And we should take a second to talk about the way that Warlock is drawn in this particular issue, because it truly embraces Bill Sienkiewicz's like Warlock is a scribble. Because from panel to panel, he has no common distinctions whatsoever, aside from he is just literally like you turn to the chisel edge Sharpie and just went, and at some point he's just like taking up the whole panel, and you're like, oh, okay, he can do this. He's practicing for killing the Magus, but not so much.
No, he dies. Everyone dies one by one, and it's harrowing. Like it's a tough scene to watch and read. But you get to the end where Danny is the last one standing, and she makes a statement echoing something that her grandfather told her about when Americans came and genocided all of the natives. And she just stands her ground to the Beyonder and says, "Fine, I'm not going to be afraid as I face death." And she lets him know that she could reach out to him and do something, even a feeble gesture, but she is standing there accepting this. It's a good scene for Danny. It's a good, like, the inevitability of this all is on her, but she is going to stand strong.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that culminates with a fairly like graphic panel of her and Brightwind. It's hard to tell whether they're like in the air and
They're in the air.
dropping.
They're up. Yeah.
Yeah. And like just turning into ashes, it looks like or blood and guts everywhere. I don't know. Like there's a couple of ways you can interpret this panel, but by the end, he waves his hand and no more New Mutants, and nobody's going to ever remember they were here. And, it looks very, very much like this team is at their end. Now, of course, we've continued reading this book and these characters will live long after this. But at the time, I can assume this might have been pretty dramatic for readers.
It's a big ending.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you're going to do everyone is going to die issue and be a death fake out, this is like the good version of that, because even knowing that there's going to be another 50 some issues of New Mutant, it's 60 some, it's 63 issues of New Mutant. No, I can do math so well, buddy. Folks don't understand. I took so much math classes.
I believe you. It's okay.
Oh, anyway, even knowing that there's 63 issues of this book left, it still hits. It's like, okay, this is a good death. And because even if it's not death, it does what Krakoa does and says, well, we're still going to make this matter. Even if it's not death, we're going to have an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if you were like me, I was not reading this book at the time. But when I went back and read the entire run, and you see that cover to 38, that classic Art Adams cover of them sort of stepping down into their graves, there is this sense of finality that goes along with this particular arc. So I thought this was a really good issue. I'm going to put that the asterisks on that and say that of the co-starring the Beyonder issues, this is probably the best one we have read, from the Uncanny X-Men and New Mutants ones where he's been pestering them and getting in their way or whatever. This one actually seems to work in terms of a cosmic power coming in and messing with them.
Yeah, this is a real story, and it's good, actually.
Yeah.
So we should do that thing we do, Adam.
Yeah, we should rank this on our giant list. Why don't you tell our listeners what that is?
Yeah, we have a big list, and the gimmick of the show is that we are ranking every X-Men story from A to Z, but really it's from best to worst. Mm-hmm. We have done this 684 times on a road. On that road again, we can't wait to get back out on that road to 700.
We're getting there.
Yeah, the best story is The House of X, The Powers of 10. Number 100 on the list is X-Men Alpha Flight. Number 200 on the list is X-Force 1-2, a force to be reckoned with. Number 300 on the list is X-Men to Protect and to Serve. Number 400 on the list is the Children of the Atom arc of Uncanny X-Men and non-Uncanny X-Men, the regular flavor. I guess flavorless X-Men.
Adjectiveless?
If you must. Exiles 43 and 45 of Blink in Time is at 500. Number 600 on our list is the Beyond arc of Mutant X.
Ooh.
Also featuring the Beyonder. Again, a bad character. The Draco's at the bottom. Yeah, this is pretty good. This one's pretty good.
All right, so at 265, we have the arc of 3 issues that comes immediately after this called Aftermath. That's 38 to 40.
This is better.
I think this might be better. Yeah. So working our way up the list from 265.
Is this better than 215 Men?
No, look, this is fun, but I don't think it's that high. We're probably mid 200s here.
Is it better than that time in Uncanny X-Men that Colossus pretended to be a ghost?
No, but we're in the same place. Like, this is not as good as Orphans of X at 235. I don't think this is. We're probably on par with like Trial of Jean Grey at 243.
I think this is better than Trial of Jean Grey.
Okay. I don't I don't like it as much as Inferno from Battle World at 242.
I think this is better than Inferno Battle World.
Okay.
But I
So,
don't think it's better than World War X at 239 from the Ultimate Comics X-Men.
all right, we're whittling it down. So,
We got between those two, we have the Age of Apocalypse Exterminated arc and the road trip, the start of the road trip era of X-Force, which put a pin in that one. I would say this is better than Road Trip, but under the Exterminated.
okay. Yeah, that's a good place for it. So that's going to be our new 241, New Mutants 37, If I Should Die. Interesting.
Well, if I should die before I wake, I pray my wife my collection of comic books to take.
I don't
Fun
think
fact.
That's not how the Metallica song goes, Zach. I don't.
Fun fact. My wife did today ask me, "Hey, do you know what X-Men Gold is?"
Oh.
And I said, "What's the context that you're asking?" Someone was selling comic books on something, and she always asks me if I want them. And I tell her, I unfortunately own every issue of X-Men Gold, babe. It's one of the worst complete runs that I own.
My mother, God bless her. I just went to visit her with my brother recently, and I have no idea how this came up, but me collecting comic books came up. It's part of the conversation. Not something that's a normal conversation with my parents, but
Sure.
I somehow, through my father asking me a variety of different questions, I managed to talk for at least 3 minutes or so about collecting the run of Hellboy. And I'm only missing a couple of issues left, but they're like the really expensive early appearances that I'm probably not going to buy because they're not cheaper than like $150. So my mom starts asking me, well, just let me know what they are. And, when we're out there at the antiques mall and at the flea markets, we'll make sure to keep our eyes open. And I'm like, Ma, you're not going to find San Diego Comics Con #2 while you're poking around at the local flea market, but thank you. So she made me write the titles down.
That rolls. Your mom seems great. Hold on.
She's going to be on the lookout.
I had, through people finding things at flea markets to give to me out of the kindness of their hearts and the dumbness of their brains, I did get multiple copies of that issue of X Factor in Inferno where Madeline's in her Inferno costume holding up a baby.
Yes. It's a great
And I'm just
cover.
thinking, every time I get it, I'm like, well, this is uncomfortable for me to get. What do you... There's a lot of context that goes into this image that I know you don't have, and I know I don't want to give you.
Absolutely. Well, the thought is there, but yes,
the thought.
Well, what is the
is
thought?
Great. The thought was, I think the thought was, this has an X on it, right? Zach likes those things.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Love that energy. But sometimes comic books are just hard to explain. And I feel like, Adam, that's part of what we have to reckon with in our next issues. This is X-Force 83 to 84. It's by John Francis Moore.
Mm-hmm.
There's some dialogue in there by Jay Faber. And you gotta know that Jim Chung, he's doing those pencils. A young Chung.
Yes. And an interesting evolution because we're going to cover 2 stories that are by this pairing. And the way that Chung's art evolves between the two is quite interesting. But this first story is the introduction of a character who actually becomes kind of pivotal towards the end of this book, and that is or to the next story that we'll talk about, and that is Arcadia. So
yeah, that's Arcadia DeVille.
Yes, Arcadia DeVille and her erstwhile deviant bodyguard Ulysses Dragonblood.
Yeah, the thing about Ulysses Dragonblood is that he is a deviant.
Mm-hmm.
You know the deviants. They are characters from the X-Men comic, Judgment Day.
Right. They're hanging out on Krakoa now because, they have enough in common to come through those portals.
Do I think the deviants are good? Not really. Do I think it's great that in a comic book that's just out, Death to Mutants #2. Crow puts on his little sunglasses and he does a fight. The thing about Crow is that he's the only deviant that matters, and he does wear a little sunglasses and is the devil.
It's great.
It's
Great.
Here's why Jack Kirby's better than everyone else in terms of character design, Adam.
Okay. Yeah.
Most people would be like, okay, deviants, underground, evil demon people. I'll make their leader look like the devil.
Right.
Great. You're there. Got the symbolism. You know what you're playing with. You understand it. Jack Kirby says, I'm going to make the leader look like a devil with little sunglasses on. And that's so much better.
Kirby's always got to accessorize, right? Is it a giant hat? Is it a tiny pair of sunglasses?
Now, Ulysses Blood Dragon does not wear little sunglasses, but do you know who does?
Oh, does Arcadia wear little sunglasses?
No, but Ulysses Blood Dragon's twin brother, Odysseus Indigo.
Oh.
He does wear little sunglasses. He represents the Damocles Foundation. You know about the Damocles Foundation, right?
Damocles Foundation, which I believe is introduced in the arc after these, but he's a more interesting looking character, I think, than Ulysses.
He's gray Ulysses with little sunglasses, where green Ulysses is a World of Warcraft orc.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, that's kind of what he looks like. We start this story with getting an appearance by everybody's favorite X-Men mama, Ma Guthrie.
I thought we were talking about Domino. It's like, she doesn't play that pivotal role. Like, she's got a role to play in here, sure. But no, this is a Guthrie story. Sam comes home after being with the X-Men for some time. Sam's struggling throughout these two issues. And Adam, do you have the context for why Sam's struggling?
Well, I believe this is around the time that the X-Men is going through its roster shift. So we have Maggot, Marrow, and Cecilia Reyes joining the team. And I don't remember why Sam is feeling put out, though.
Sam's feeling put out because he was not one of the classic X-Men, and editorial wanted to change the roster back to the classic X-Men and then send X-Force, Sam back to X-Force or wherever he belongs. Which is sad for him. But he's also feeling put out because his best friend, Bobby DaCosta, did definitely cheat on Cannonball with Cannonball's girlfriend, Meltdown.
Yes, and I believe we've covered that story on the show before, and I remember when that happened being like, really? This is an odd choice, but it you know, canon is canon. I guess it happened.
And Cannonball is Cannonball, so I understand that.
Yeah. It's also implied here. Hold on. It's also implied here that Cannonball is developing some feelings for Marrow, which, gosh, I wish they had played up on that. That could have been interesting.
Because Marrow had some feelings for, well, Kitty Pryde when she comes back, and then also Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess also Sam Guthrie a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, but
that's neither here nor there. What is here is Arcadia DeVille.
Yes, she is portrayed sort of as a younger girl who's glowing that Sam believes is in trouble and mistakenly thinks that when he encounters him that Ulysses has sort of ill intentions, but that's not the case. Because
to be fair, this little glowy girl is being chased around by a World of Warcraft orc.
Yeah, she's also like a real nasty, like bossy girl. She's basically like, kill this dude. We don't know who he is, but kill Sam.
They don't kill Sam.
No,
they get into a fight. And eventually X-Force shows up. You see, X-Force was busy dealing with the newest member of their team, Bedlam. You know Bedlam, very famous X-Men character, Jesse Bedlam.
Yeah, Jesse Bedlam. Very similar to Hijack in the Power set.
Yeah, Jesse Bedlam as portrayed by Terry Crews in a bad movie.
Not a great decision to do this skinny boy as Terry Crews, but okay.
Hold on. How many great decisions were made in the entirety of the movie Deadpool 2?
There is one, and that is the score, which has like this choir singing. Oh, what do they do? What does the
They're
choir
sing-
sing?
They're singing a bunch of stuff that we can't say on this family
Yeah,
friendly
yeah,
podcast.
but it's like they're anyway. That might have been
I
the
hated
only.
that part actually. I really did. I was
Oh,
like,
really?
this is dumb. Yeah, the movie had already lost me by that point. We do not need to talk about Deadpool 2.
You brought it
And
up.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
This Bedlam is cool. I like this Bedlam, and this Bedlam is being chased around by another interesting thing that John Francis Moore is adding to the lore, and that is the group Muse, which is apparently the mutant underground that we had heard Professor Xavier referring to on a couple different occasions.
Yeah, they're helping mutants. Do you know how many times Muse comes up?
Not many, I'm assuming, because I don't remember seeing them elsewhere.
They will never appear again.
It feels like an Excalibur acronym, doesn't it? Like
It really does. It's a really cool idea, and I kind of wish that like the mutant underground support engine is a really cool idea that would make a really mediocre TV show, especially if you followed primarily the human family that has a couple of mutant children instead of all the cool mutants doing the underground supporting.
wow, you're describing The Gifted.
I mean, I'm not describing the Gifted. if that's what you're implying, Adam. I guess there are some similarities.
And that would be fine as long as, you still had some action. So, for example, as Sam, Ulysses, and Arcadia are coming to terms, we now have another group of deviants that are out to kill Arcadia. So it's up to Cannonball to turn from the antagonist into the aggressor and help protect these characters.
Yeah, that's all they can do, and they try and protect him. Hey, it turns out then all of X-Force shows up, and they get into a fight. Arcadia DeVille. Well, they get into a fight with the new Deviants. It's a group called the Sword.
Not to be confused with Sword, but this
Not
is
to be
the
confused
Sword.
with Sword. They are the Sword.
Yes.
Do you know who the Sword works for?
Well, don't they work for Ulysses' brother?
Yeah, they work for the Damocles Foundation.
Yeah.
See, it's the Sword of Damocles.
Very classy. I like that.
It's this kind of content that you don't get in regular comics. You only get classics puns in late 90s X-Force, right?
Sure. I mean, this is an interesting run of some things that you would not be expecting to happen to this team. It's cosmic in a weird way, and to the point where when Dani and Arcadia make physical contact for the first time, Dani basically like gets the powers cosmic. At least it looks that way.
She looks like Carolina Dean from The Runaways.
Yes.
Dani will look this way for 20 issues.
She's blue. She's sparkly. And it's an interesting look because these characters have never met. You don't understand why they would have any kind of history together. So why is this happening?
It's happening because John Francis Moore is just throwing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. It is about the time that Jim Chung joins the book in place of Adam Polina, that maybe the road trip era takes some paths less traveled on.
Yeah. But I think this is kind of refreshing. It's weird, that's for sure. And with Jim Chung, I think the art looks pretty good. This isn't as detailed as maybe, or as stylized. I shouldn't say that. It is definitely like
it's stylized.
It is his style. Okay.
Yeah, everyone has the Jim Chung face.
Yes. Is he locked in completely to all of his stylized quirks that he will develop later in his career? Not quite yet. And it depends on who's inking him. Mark Morales, I think, does most of the inks on these two issues. But, it still looks really cool. I think the art is pretty solid. And we close the issue out with Sam making peace with Boomer and Birdo.
Meltdown. She's Meltdown now, Adam. Please get her name right.
Right. Sorry. And they decide, hey, we're a team again, and we're going to go off and go on more adventures. So, if for solely the, getting Cannonball back on the train, it's kind of cool. It's a whole lot of nonsense, but it's kind of fun.
This isn't a bad issue, but it is kind of a blah issue, which in the late 90s was refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it is an interesting change from what Paulina was doing art wise, which was extremely distinctive. This is distinctive in another way, and I appreciate it. I think it looks really neat. So, to the further adventures.
The further adventures.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give us a starting point.
Okay.
This isn't as good as Children of the Atom, which we talked about that was at 400. It's now been pushed back to 401.
I think that's fair. This is middling. It's certainly not. You're not going to like rush out to find the first appearance of Arcadia and Ulysses Dragonstone. But it's
unless they appear in Eternals 2, too many Eternals.
Hey, that'd be really fun, actually. But I
Too many Eternals was actually the tagline for Eternals 1.
Oh, is it really? You're making that.
That's a joke on how many characters they had in that movie and how they didn't spend adequate time to develop even one of them.
Oh boy, I do think.
Do you think about how? I'm sorry.
I think about the Eternals movie. No, I don't.
Oh, I was going to ask if you thought about the part how Kingo is like, "Oh, we're getting ready for the final battle. I don't want to be a part of it," and leaves for the rest of the movie.
I mean, no. If I'm being honest, I do not think about that because I watched it once and I've not really thought about it again. Because
I've constantly thought about the fact that we did get a Kirby Celestial.
Oh,
we didn't get Kirby Eternals or Deviants. We did just get multiple Kirby Celestials.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They still kind of looked like MCU'd.
Not the rock one. Not the rock one that was coming out of the earth and being born.
Yeah, no, that one looked like a straight up.
Tiamat the Dreaming Celestial?
Yeah. Yep.
That was great. That part was great.
Yeah.
Tiamat the Dreaming Celestial does not appear in this. Though I will say for the rest of this X-Force run, it is oddly all about the Eternals and the Deviants.
Yeah, it's pushing this stuff in an interesting direction, which I don't know if it works or not, but it's kind of cool.
You've highlighted District M. This is better than District M.
Yeah, I think so
District
too.
X, excuse me.
Yeah, and I think the story is more interesting than at 422, the X-Men Volume 4 primer.
Also Jim Chung.
Wait, isn't that Coipel?
It is Coipel. They have similar faces.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wanted to make that distinction.
They both have the same face, but they do have distinct same face.
Oh my God. Do you follow Coipel on Instagram?
I do not.
You should. Coipel has been posting all of this stuff from his sketchbooks over the past year. And the most recent thing he did was this 2-page spread out of his sketchbook that was the Astonishing X-Men from AOA. Oh my God. It's like, guy's a master. Anyway.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, you got to check that out. Is this better or worse than Generation Hope? For the future is a 4-letter word. I think that's probably better than this.
Yeah, let's put it right there then.
All right, great. So this is going to be our new 421?
This is 421. I'm calling it Homefront for now. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Now, if you were reading this on Marvel Unlimited, you might be a little confused. Specifically, we get these 2 issues, and then it skips immediately to issue 99, and then doesn't have issue 100, which is the 2 issues that we're going to be covering right now.
Do you want me to tell you why it only has 99 and not 100?
I'm guessing it's due to an Epic collection.
No, it's due to the fact that they, for some unknown reason, collect 99 in a trade paperback called Demon Bear, because Demon Bear is only 3 issues long. So they put this one story that's wildly unrelated, but does involve Demon Bear.
It actually doesn't? Like, it only, well...
It involves a psychic manifestation of the Demon Bear that's not the Demon Bear from the Demon Bear reality from the Badlands, but it is a projection of Danny's fears and anxieties.
Well, let's get into it. So this is X-Force 99 to 100 from Volume 1, and it is the Dark Cathedral story. And you're right, on the cover, we get this absolutely gorgeous cover to 99, drawn by who else? Bill Sienkiewicz. Of Danny,
Mr. Demon Bear himself.
Danny running from the bear, and inside, Jim Chung is kind of going. You remember how Chris Bachalo went through that phase where like everybody kind of looked like a kid? Like
Are you talking about Chibi Bachalo?
Yeah, like everybody was kind of like shorter and had like anime eyes like for a while. Like this
You're
is
describing most of his art, to be fair, but yes, I do remember the distinct Chibi Bachalo era.
yes. Well, Jim has kind of gone through this. Like if you look at these issues in succession, um everybody's shorter. Like Sam in particular looks like much younger than he does in the 80s issues of this book. It's
Okay,
strange.
but in the 80s issues, he looks like an old person.
It's weird though. It's like he's de-aged by like 5 years and like gotten short, which Sam never is. Anyway, I'm talking about Jim for just the sheer. I've said this before. I will continue to say it. No one should draw the Demon Bear except Bill Sienkiewicz. And why bring him back? Why do this?
Hold on, I think that Jim Chung is doing what the Demon Bear looks like if Jim Chung drew him.
Oh, absolutely. Is that a good thing that I think should be in this story? No, it's not.
I think maybe I wouldn't do that.
It's a two-part thing. One, from a storytelling perspective, I never understand bringing this entity back after
Because
that
it's
original
because
arc.
it's the best New Mutant story.
I understand that, and it's
Adam, it's because it's the
recognizable.
third best X-Men story of all time.
I get it. I get it. It's why we keep getting the Phoenix over and over again. But this is so particular to Danny's backstory that it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Here, it actually does work with the story. I'll give
Because
Francis more.
the story is about Danny and
Yes.
her backstory and consolidating all of the various elements of them into one unique whole.
Yes. So we have a demon bear. It's attacking San Francisco, which is where X Force lives now, or are
They,
now.
they stopped road tripping and they started hanging out in San Francisco.
Yes. Siren is not with them because Farrell ripped out her vocal cords or something and is doing a little like side mission with some family members.
I don't think that ever comes up. What Siren goes through things in the next couple of next couple of issues that never comes up again. The Marvel Wikia does say, after being freed through unknown ways of the and that is only in the Women of Marvel Celebrating 7 Decades Handbook Volume 1. So at one point when they were putting handbook entries in for Siren, they said, we don't know how this happened, but we dropped this plot because she gets possessed by not Malice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I read this, I was like, oh, that's Malice, but it's not Malice. So she does get a necklace put around her that possesses
You
her.
can't
But
have multiple necklace possession
no,
characters.
no.
You can have the one. You can have one. Christopher Claremont.
Yeah.
You got to think that John Francis Moore didn't know that he was getting fired from the book when he was setting up this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it definitely seems like hey, I'm going to get back to this in a little bit. So that's what's going on with Siren. It's not really important. So this demon bear, or this version of the demon bear, it decides it's going to have a little snack, and it eats Danny and Arcadia whole. And
Wait, Arcadia's back.
Yes, Arcadia is there. And the two of them learn about Arcadia's sort of childhood doll named Mary Weather, who is a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah. Arcadia develops this whole fake reality that she is all into, and it has its own lore and history, and also an evil queen. Anyway.
Well, the evil
Arcadia
queen is important to the story because
the Queen of the Star Swords.
Yes, the Queen of the Star Swords, because as the two of them join their powers, their blue, starry, cosmic powers inside the Demon Bear goes kerplooey, and at the end of issue 99, we are confronted with 4 separate versions of Dani Moonstar, including the original New Mutants, the Valkyrie, the X-Force 90s version, and
the undercover. X-Force undercover when Dani had her mask.
Yes.
When Dani went undercover as someone whose name was just Moonstar.
Yeah, and the current entity, and they are being led by this queen of the whatever swords.
Star Swords. Queen of the Star Swords.
Yes, Queen of the Star Swords.
Queen of the Star Swords. Very, very famous X-Men villain, the Queen of the Star Swords.
Yes. So that's all happening. Does it make a lot of sense?
Not really, because what they end up having to do is, because it's issue 100, they have to tie everything back into all of this past X-Force continuity and New Mutants continuity, so everybody shows up, but different alternate reality versions of them, and what you get is, oh, these are actually Dani from different points in her life in different universes, and some different things happened, and eventually they have to reconcile all those so that Dani can be okay.
Right. So we get Cable. Cable is here with his scimitar. We get Ulysses Dragonblood shows up for a little bit. Risk shows back up in issue 99.
I love Risk. People need to, I call her Risque because that's the way that people should say that.
Is it? We've talked about this on the show before, I feel like. Is it Risk or Risque? Is it supposed to be Risque? I like saying risque, but I feel like
if it's not supposed to be risque, I'm calling it's supposed to be risque. There's a QUE. It's like Risk, but spelled weird would be a bad superhero name. And risque is not much better.
Yeah. Well, regardless of that, because once all of the X-Force members end up inside this reality hopping, there's flashbacks to the 90s team. Deadpool shows up. The dragon from Arcadia's childhood, Fenwick, is there.
Who should be colored anything except for Lockjaw colors.
And that's how we get Cable. We're getting little touches of just about, all these different eras and some different realities that don't really line up with anything. And unfortunately, just due to I don't know whether it was just the schedule or the length of this issue, Jim Chung does not do the entire issue. And the issue definitely suffers for that, because there are points in here where we get these crossing realities. And frankly, the story stops making sense at a certain point.
It really does. Chris Renaud does some of those arts. It's not sensical. It gets weird. Jennifer Kale shows up here. Mm-hmm. Ted Salas shows up. Ted Salas, the Man-Thing?
Yes. So because this, wherever they are, is technically a nexus of realities, Man-Thing is here, of course, to figure this all out.
I love Ted Salas, the Man-Thing. I don't understand why Ted Salas, the Man-Thing, needs to continue to be connected to the nexus of all realities. I don't know why he can't just be a Man-Thing.
Well, he's got to have a gimmick. So
his gimmick is that he's a Man-Thing.
Yeah. So
his gimmick is that all that no fear burn at the touch of the Man-Thing.
So when Man-Thing touches Dani is then given some sort of nexus reality combining arrow powers and is able to shoot it into wherever they're at and break whatever's going on. Cable decides, I'm sticking around. There's a gigantic explosion and everybody is returned to normal. And the story continues.
It actually doesn't continue. It gets one fill-in and then Warren Ellis shows up to do the worst Counter X book.
So weird.
Seriously, the Whilce Portacio, Ian Edgington X-Force is the worst X-Force that's existed.
That is an unfortunate era. I have to say,
does not look at his best.
Yeah, when Chung is on here, man, it looks great. He's doing a fantastic job, and I just wish this was a little bit more coherent. That's what I would like, because like I said, especially with all this reality hopping and stuff, it starts to fall apart and unravel.
This is my issue with especially the later part of John Francis Moore's X-Force, and I tend to be an advocate for the Road Trip era team. By the time the Eternals and the Deviants shows up, it does go fully off the rails and maybe too deep for its own good. Like, do you know how there is the whole thing about, well, actually the Celestials planted something in humans to create mutants and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes from John Francis Moore's later.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when Earth X came out, because that obviously had some play in it, but that was an alternate reality, whatever thing. And I was once mad about this, and then I remembered The Celestials made everything, man. It's space gods. Don't worry about it.
It's not worth getting angry about.
Who
So
could get angry at the Celestials? Who could want to blow up a Celestial that they made in their own image?
Tony Stark, always good to really make things worse every crossover that happens, right?
Okay, listen, I love the X-Men. The Mutants of Krakoa did not help the situation
No,
by
I
trying
don't.
to attack and dethrone God.
No, but they shouldn't have made a god to begin with. Anyway,
Well,
why
no,
are
they
we
were
talking
building
about
a
Judgment Day?
religion. They were building it bigger.
So I don't know what to think of this. You know, it is obviously a natural progression from what he was doing in in the issues we were just talking about. He wants to do something like huge and epic, but I just, you know, aside from what Chung's doing art wise, I just don't think it holds together.
Yeah, that's the problem with this, is that I respect it. It's not super duper.
Yeah, it just kind of falls apart from its own pieces. So I I think this is probably about the same as the story we just talked about, but I honestly think this might be a little worse just because it's not as coherent.
Here's what I'd say. We will skip a spot.
Okay.
We'll put it below Extreme X-Men Volume 2, 1 through 3, Xavier Must Die, which puts it 2 spots below that last X-Force.
Yeah, that's fine. All right.
But above Primer.
Okay. So this is going to be our new 423?
423.
Okay. That is a great spot for it. I still think this is worth at least checking out. I mean, it's very, very strange, but
Find the tail end of the John Francis Moore X-Force, because it gets weird. Jay and Miles just started covering it on the podcast Explain the X-Men. So, you know, you got maybe that'll create more demand for this weird set of stories.
yeah, it would be really cool if, you know, all of this could be available on Marvel U and, you know, get an epic collection going or something.
It'd be really cool if Marvel Unlimited worked. That's all I'm asking. All I'm asking is to be able to download my Ding Dang Comics, Marvel, or just read them. I can hotspot. It's fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I was on a stretch there where it was working pretty well, and then recently I've had some issues where it's freezing up on me again. So anyway, I don't want to, you know, take MU to court, but this is an interesting set of stories. So thank you to
Nance.
Thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk about Dani, sort of.
Guys, if you want to know how to support this podcast just like Nance, go listen to this episode again. We talked about it really close to the beginning.
Yeah.
Adam, what do you got going on?
Not much. Follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And Zach, we have a pretty exciting show coming up next week, correct?
Next week, friend of the show and longtime guest Leah Williams will be joining us to talk about X-Terminators.
Yes.
It will be loud. It will be dumb. There will be parental guidance suggested on this particular episode. But I'm very excited for it. Leah's always a fun time. We'll just have fun. It's gonna be some friends hanging out, making some laughs, talking about Dazzler's butt.
And we hope you can join us.
You know what I hope, Adam?
What do you hope, Zach?
I hope that this has been Battle of the Atom, and you survived the experience.
Get it!